All right, this is lesson 1.1. We're going to talk about adding and subtracting complex numbers. First of all, let's talk about what an imaginary number is. You should remember that an imaginary number is represented by the letter I, so it's just one single term. So let's talk about if we had something squared has to equal -9. You should notice that if I'm trying to get x by itself, I would want to cancel out the squared by square rooting both sides. And so that will become x. But here's where the problem occurs. I can't square root a negative number. So when I square root this, think of it as square rooting 9, which is 3. But because it's a -9, the square root of that's going to become 3i. And remember, we do get two solutions. We get plus or a minus of that when we square root. But let's talk about why we can't square root a negative. This should equal -9. So let's try 3. If I plug in 3 and square it, 3 squared is 9. If I plug in -3, -3 times itself is also +9. So there's no possible number. Forgot about bells going off today, sorry. There's no possible number that I could plug in for x to make it equal -9. Hence why we have to have I. Okay, so what you need to know is that the definition of I is that it is equal to the square root of -1. So anytime I talk about what is an imaginary number, the square root of -1 is I. So then that brings us to what is a complex number. A complex number is a binomial or consists of two terms. It's going to have a real part, which is the a value, and it's going to have an imaginary part, which is the something I, the bi part. And it needs to go in this order. That's important too, is it needs to go real part, then plus or minus the imaginary part. Adding and subtracting complex numbers is really simple. All we need to do is combine like terms. It's just in the different order than we're used to, right? So if we would have had something like 3 plus 2x plus 5x plus 1, the parentheses really aren't doing anything. We're just adding everything. So we would have normally our x terms first, so that would be a 7x plus 3 plus 1 is 4. We're doing the same thing here. The plus sign is not doing anything. Really, we just have the terms 3, we have a -4i, we have a plus -12, which is really just -12 and then minus 3i. All right, so we want to put the real part first. 3 minus 12 would be -9. -4i minus 3 more I would be -7i. And that's your answer. Okay, and then number 2, the only difference is now we are subtracting. The best strategy that I have is remember that there was really a -1 hiding there, and we need to distribute that -1, and then everything just turns into adding like on problem number 1. Okay, so first set or first complex number, don't change anything, just bring it out of parentheses. -1 times -11 is +11. -1 times 3i is -3i. And then we're going to put our real part together first. And then our imaginary part. And that's your answer. And those are our notes for the first lesson.